Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Maroon Friday edition of the Yard. Hope you're wearing maroon today. Isn't it wonderful that we live in a country that we can celebrate Maroon Friday as we choose? Yeah, big Maroon Friday, too, as Bulldogs are going to take on Ole Miss this weekend in baseball. We're going to preview the series here in our first segment, but a lot to talk about, obviously. And, big top 10 list today. I don't know if you guys are ready for this. It's difficult, man. It's tough picking one great rock song per year. There's so many great ones, especially in the 80s, which is the pinnacle of American music. It's true. You know it. Those of us that lived through it fully understand it. But yeah, it's been fun. A lot of good feedback, too, on our 60s and 70s list. I suspect the 80s list is going to draw a lot of criticism. I do. I really do. Because we're going to leave out some of our favorites. I mean, we did that in the 70s, too. We did No Kiss, no Leonard Skinner. Yeah, it's tough, man. You try that exercise. Roy said he's put his 80s list together, and he wants to compare it to mine. It's going to be interesting. It is. Guys, I had lunch at Bulldog Burger Company today with my friend, Jeff Murrah. Jeff is now retired. Jeff came up and no longer in the military, so he's grown a full beard. I barely recognized him. We had the spring rolls. And as we are enjoying these spring rolls, which I don't know what it was about today, they hit today. They're always great, but something about today, they were outstanding. And Jeff began the meal looking a little bit like a hobo. And before the meal was over, he looked like almost like a holy version of Santa Claus. It's incredible what those spring rolls will do for you. Don't take my word for it. Go see for yourself. The spring rolls will make you and everybody around you better looking. I had also the chicken bacon ranch sliders. It's a great lunch portion. You know how I feel about those sloppy Joe sliders. You know, sometimes I don't want to get too full for lunch and then not have an appetite for dinner. And I was eating a little bit later in the day. But, those chicken bacon ranch sliders. Really, really good portion. My server told me those are her favorite. Also got to see the youngest, Ian. He just happened to be in there getting some dessert, saying hello to his friends. And he told me, man, today's a great day. I said, why is it a great day? He said, well, the weather is so great today, it just feels so good to be outside. He goes, it's got me in such a good mood. The only time I get to see him is if I go to Bulldog Burger Company. You know how college kids are. Listen, you need to go by and see your friends at Bulldog Burger Company. I love Bulldog Burger Company. I promise you guys, I was a customer long before they were a sponsor. I absolutely love going to eat at Bulldog Burger Company. I get that Diet Coke with the lime, because I'm a little bit Hollywood. And they always bring that to me. And every time they bring the refill, they bring it again with a lime, right? Maybe you should try that. Maybe that'll catch on. But, next time you're in town, be sure and go by and check them out. And it's 3 towns, so they can help you out with that, right? The Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowwood area, University Drive here in Star Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo. Such great locations, great food, great service. Get the great restaurant quality hamburger. It's one of the fine delicacies we afford ourselves. Get that chocolate shake to go. Big advocate for dessert to go. That should become like a national thing. It absolutely should. Be sure next time to put your feet under their table and let them handle everything for you. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. M-E-A-T. All right, let's jump right into Ole Miss. Now, they open up that series with Hawaii. Of course, Rebels are 18 and 15 overall. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not like some of our fans like, we're going to go in there and kill those guys. I would love that to be the case. I'm just not expecting it. I really expect to get Ole Miss's best effort. Because, number one, their backs are against the wall. They're 3-9 in the conference. You lose these 3 this weekend, even if you lose 2, it really, really, really puts you in a bad spot. Really in a bad spot. Because of the fact that you're 5 weekends in, you've already got more than double-digit losses. And so you're really chasing the season with a team that has proven to be incapable of the chase. They've had a very difficult schedule in the conference to start. I don't think they're as bad as their record indicates, but this is not a great team. But they opened up against Hawaii out there. And listen, hey, good for Bianco for scheduling a cool trip for the kids. They go out there and split that series. But we found out kind of early on that this Ole Miss pitching staff didn't have much depth. And listen, Hawaii can swing it a little bit too. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and, stump for those guys, but they are a very offensive club. Not to mention, you got to think about all the the fatigue from travel and things like that. And so they split the series, and really give up 22 runs, man, in the last 16 innings of that series. It's pretty rough. It was. But 2-2, and then they lose to the Fighting Tommy Raffos of Arkansas State. It's always a great thing. It is when we see our Bulldog alums doing well. Raffo, the winningest coach in Arkansas State history. Got some wins over Ole Miss in that stretch, too. That weekend, Ole Miss hosts High Point. Guys, you talk about a weird series. They lose game 1, 7-3. High Point goes into Oxford, Mississippi, and takes game 1. Ole Miss comes out angry after that. You got to think you've lost 4 games in a row. And Bianco's a good coach. I know some of their fans don't think so. I do. I do. I think Bianco is a good coach. And so they 10-run roll High Point in the next game, 12-2, and then it's 25-2. Of course, High Point doesn't have, you can imagine Sunday pitching for High Point. But Ole Miss did what they needed to do to kind of, hey, listen, we're not going away yet. They get Little Rock in a midweek game, 12-6. They come back with a 12-3 win over Missouri State. So really, really offensive numbers there. Bouncing back, goodness gracious. Tons of runs. It's true. And so now you start thinking, okay, all right, we're good. We had a little bump in the road. Now we're good. Well, then Iowa comes in. Iowa wins the first game 13-7. And you may have seen that game. It was kind of a crazy game. Iowa with the big lead. Ole Miss comes back late, and then Iowa answers in the 9th inning to put the game away 13-7. And then the Rebels take the next 2. And so you're like, hey, as bad as Friday was, at least we won the series. And Iowa was ranked at that time. Iowa was expected to have a really good pitching staff. They're okay. They've gotten better here as of late. But at the time, it seemed like a pretty significant series win. They take down Memphis 5-3, get Morehead State. And Morehead State on a weekend series, that's, not anything to write home about. But they take care of business. But the Sunday game a little bit more competitive, 6-5 there. They take care of Louisiana Monroe. And now all of a sudden you think, okay, Ole Miss is in pretty good shape. Anytime that you put together an 8-game winning streak, at any point in your schedule, you think, okay, we're headed in the right direction. And then South Carolina shows up in Oxford. And Ole Miss takes the first 2. Now it's a 10-game winning streak. And that 10th game is a 12-3 win over a number 20 South Carolina team. Now, granted, the Gamecocks have fallen since then, but they do get the Sunday win there. But again, hey, you get Iowa in there, you take 2 out of 3, you take 2 out of 3 from South Carolina. You think, okay, we're going pretty good. On Tuesday, you get Southern Miss, the 25-ranked Golden Eagles, and you beat them in Pearl. And so at this point, the national baseball media is all kind of paying attention. Said, hey, you know what? They're playing better as of late. Ole Miss, kind of like Mississippi State, not a lot of people expected much. I expected more from State than I did Ole Miss. But people are like, you know what? They're winning. They head to Knoxville, and they get shelled, 15-3, game 1. They bounce back on Saturday. Really good performance here from the pitching standpoint, and they win 8-5. And again, this is a Tennessee lineup. It's pretty gaudy offensively. And then they get tanked on Sunday, 15-4 in 7 innings. They get by our friends from Austin Peay, 13-9. It was a game for a little while, but give Ole Miss credit for putting the game away. State couldn't do it. And then Kentucky comes to Oxford. Now, my feelings about Kentucky. Nick Mingione is my friend, and I always want to see Kentucky do well, but not at our expense. And so they win the first couple of games. I sent a text message to Nick Saturday night. I said, Nick, I don't ask you for much, but really need that sweep. And he goes, Steve, you're asking for an awful lot. And so, of course, after they win 15-1 on Sunday, I texted him back. I knew you could do it, never had a doubt. But yeah, it is so tough to sweep in the Southeastern Conference, but to go on the road and sweep, no matter who it is significant. That was a very significant series win for Kentucky, and it really put Ole Miss behind the brakes a little bit. Then they lose to Memphis, 9-4 to Memphis. And that's in Memphis, and we're supposed to take a trip up there later. And then you get Arkansas. And it's like, Kentucky wasn't expected to be what they have been. Guys, they're 12-1 in the SEC right now. You didn't expect that. I didn't. You knew Arkansas would be good. And this Arkansas offense is maybe not what you would expect from a number 1 team. And Ole Miss went in there and made it a game. These games were competitive. But in the end, Ole Miss's pitching just kind of couldn't come through. And offensively, it wasn't a great weekend for them. We scored 9 runs on the weekend, but Arkansas takes all 3. The game with Murray State is canceled. And so all of a sudden you look up here, and the Ole Miss Rebels now have lost 7 games in a row. And maybe canceling the midweek game, even though it was weather conditions out there, it may have proven to be a good thing. Kind of give the guys a day off mentally and prepare. And that's another reason why I expect them to come out barking. I don't think there's any question about it. It's not just a rivalry thing. They're fighting for their season. Mike Bianco arguably fighting for his job, and a lot of discussions about they may, quote, retire him at the end of the year. But, hey, good for Mike. In 2022, everybody wanted him gone. Last team in a tournament, they end up winning the thing. Not happy about them winning it, but there's also some poetry and all that stuff too. Let's look inside the numbers a little bit here. Pitching wise, things have not been good. I mean, and you guys know that. And that's State's got to get it going early. I mean, we need to get some runs up the first time through the order. Kind of take that crowd out of it. It's a sellout crowd for Saturday, and the Grove Bowl is Saturday, so it'll be probably a record type crowd up there. Certainly will be a very hostile environment, probably the most hostile environment State's faced all this year. Ethan Leger is leading the team with a 351 average. Among the regulars, Ole Miss only has 2 players hitting above 300. That's both of them Ethan, ironically enough. Ethan Groff, a guy from Tulane that Mississippi State kind of kicked the tires with out of the portal 2 years ago, has come back and having a good year for them. But Andrew Fisher has kind of been the power source for them. 13 tanks this year, 34 RBIs. Both of those numbers lead the Rebels this year. And he's hitting right at 299. So, one base hit away from being 300. But really, really good year for him so far. It's interesting, too. We always talk about its names, and things like that. This roster is not at all what it was last year. You got a few pieces back. They lost a ton from last year. Luke Hill's a guy that transferred in, probably hasn't performed up to expectations. He's hitting 261, has 1 home run, 15 triples. He's struck out 17 times, but he's walked 25 times. So he's a guy, obviously, that not going to strike out a lot, going to put the ball in play. Also a threat to steal. He's 9 of 10 on the bases. The leader is Ethan Groff, 11 for 11. And as a team, Ole Miss, not running a ton, but they're very opportunistic when they do. 39 stolen bases in 44 attempts on the year. Now, opponents have stolen 34 or 45, so that's 11 caught stealings there. And Bianco's always going to have good catchers, always. Some better than others. But Mike obviously was a big-time catcher at LSU, during some of the glory years down there for the Tigers. And so and that's one of the things I've always respected. Bianco, even when he hadn't had great pitching, he's had great catchers. And great catchers make good pitchers great on some days. But, a lot of new names on here. Will Furnace is back. This is a guy, too, that his batting average is 232. But he's been a pretty good mistake hitter. He's a guy, if you leave a ball up, he can bang it. He's got 4 tanks on the year, but he is a guy that, can get the extra base hit when they need it. But, 232, not very good there. But 19 strikeouts on the year and with 56 at-bats. Hadn't been a full-time starter. Started just 20 of the 32 games. But, this is a team that's got some pieces. They just don't have enough, and that's been the real issue. There's just not much depth in this order. Once you get through the 4 hole, it's just kind of a bunch of guys, right? As a team, they've hit 47 home runs, and it's pretty much mixed throughout the order with the exception of Andrew Fisher. Jackson Ross has got 7. Ethan Leger with 8. And again, Leger's a guy, too. There were a lot of talk last year he might come out. And maybe he just didn't get the number he wanted or the feedback that he wanted and decided to come back to college for another year. But, certainly a team that if we go up there in that environment and we don't pitch it well, it could be a tough weekend. You just got to throw strikes and keep the ball down and not give that crowd a chance to really kind of get up and get moving. And that's one thing I think is important, managing the emotions of the road environment. Because, we went to Florida. I mean, that's not a raucous environment. You went to A&M, and even though the environment is great, I mean, it's not a huge crowd. I mean, they get 7,000 people in there, and they talk about it being a packed house. I mean, that's a Tuesday, for us. But as a team, Ole Miss is hitting 272. Not great, not necessarily poor, but maybe the composition of this lineup maybe has not lived up to billing. But again, just remember they were picked sixth in the SEC. Let's look at conference numbers from a hitting standpoint, because again, all right, Bulldog fans, let's go ahead and admit it. Mississippi State folks and Boots are awful fond of one another. Our friends at Tecovas are back to get you ready for this festival and concert season. You know it's going to be all about boots, and Tecovas is your stop for festival style. Tecovas has seasonal and limited edition offerings this spring, including men's and women's boots, apparel, hats, bags, and so much more. All Tecovas boots are made by hand in a time-honored tradition with timeless styles that are always on trend. And Tecovas has first wear comfort with little to no break-in period. It's hard to find that level of comfort paired with this level of style. Plus, their direct-to-consumer pricing keeps value on your feet and money in your pocket. Stop by your local Tecovas store, have a complimentary drink or two, and shop new styles. The smell of fresh leather and a friendly staff are always at your service. Many stores even have leather custom branding to make your boots truly personalized. And with regular live music and events coming up, there's no in-store experience quite like theirs. If you can't make it into a store, just visit Tecovas, that's TECOVAS.com. They offer free shipping on all boots, as well as free returns and exchanges, and ship right to your door. Go to Tecovas.com today and find your new favorite pair of boots. Non-conference, outside of that Iowa series, it was interesting. Ethan Groff hitting 326. To lead the Ole Miss regulars. Luke Hill hitting 302. So he has been better as of late. And then Fisher hitting 289. Leger at 280, 279. But you start pumping through here. There's not a consistent 7 or 8 players that have played every day in SEC competition. Now, Groff, Hill, Fisher, and Leger have. And outside of that, they've kind of played the matchups there. Jackson Ross has played all 12 games too. But by and large, they just haven't really settled on an everyday 8. Just hadn't worked out that way. Let's look at pitching numbers. We'll start with the overall numbers, and then we're going to go to some conference numbers. And obviously, everybody's conference numbers are going to be a little inflated compared to non-conference because the quality competition is better. But from a pitching standpoint, overall, and again, we'll go with the regulars here. There's a ton of these guys that have pitched rather sparingly, like Mitch Morrell, 4 appearances. He's only pitched 6.2 innings. We've seen him in the past. Ryan Rodriguez has had 4 appearances, only pitched 3.2. Austin Simmons, 1 appearance, 2/3 of an inning. But you get a little deeper here. Riley Maddox is the guy that we'll see tonight. He's made. Let me switch over here. I hit the wrong tab there. Thought I had it figured out. Overall pitching. Riley Maddox on the year, 4.46 ERA, 8 appearances, 7 starts, 36 1/3 innings pitched, allowed 34 hits. So right at a hit per inning, and then 25 total runs, but 18 earned runs. And part of that is because Ole Miss has the worst defensive fielding percentage in the conference. It's kind of like what we went through last year. You struggle at times to throw strikes, and then when you do, the guys behind you don't stand up and make plays. That's been a real issue for them. They have not played very well defensively. Now, getting a little deeper here, we talk about Mitch Morrell. Yeah, 10 appearances on the year, and I'm pretty confident we'll see him. But he has been, kind of a short relief guy. 15 innings pitched, allowed 11 hits, 5 runs, 4 of them earned, 14 Ks against 3 walks. And so I feel confident we'll see him. He's done a pretty good job keeping the ball down. Just 3 extra base hits against him on the year, and those 3 are doubles. So he's kept the ball in the ballpark, and 216 is the batting average against there. Liam Dole is the guy that beat Tennessee. And I watched that game. I thought he was really, really good. And that's a tough ballpark during the day to kind of keep the ball in the yard. He has allowed 5 tanks on the year, but his ERA is 7.01. 2-2 on the year, 9 appearances, 5 starts. But he was electric in that ball game against Tennessee. And that's the thing that happens. Sometimes you have a guy maybe behind the strength of that home crowd, a lot of emotion in that ball game. Sometimes the crowd can kind of will you to a win. And Dole is a guy that I think kind of feeds off the crowd a little bit. Even though he had the big road win, I think this is a guy that could benefit from having a near capacity crowd on Saturday. But 25.2 innings pitched, allowed 23 hits, 21 runs. That's the rub right there, right? And 20 of those are earned, and 43 and 13 is your strike to walkouts there. But yeah, he's a guy that has had some moments this year, and a little shakeup too on Sunday. Mason Nichols is going to go. He's had 12 appearances this year, just one start. We'll start the Sunday game. 3.93 is the ERA. 18 and a third innings pitched. So not a ton of action, but enough, right? But teams are hitting 175 against him. I don't know if he serves as an opener. I'm sure Bianco's like, hey, get us everything you can. But you got to think that guy can probably get you through the order once. And on Sundays, you kind of got to just piece this thing together. It's all very interesting. And Connor Spencer, this guy's got 5 saves on the year. It's interesting to see a closer with a 9.35 ERA. He's thrown 8.2 innings, allowed a hit per inning, and 9 earned runs on the year. So closing hadn't been a forte, even though he's got the 5 saves. Let's look at the conference pitching numbers. This is what really stands out to me. Team ERA is 8.81. They have allowed 120 hits in 97 innings and 105 runs, 95 of them earned. They've struck out just 102 and walked 65. Batting average against Ole Miss in conference play is 305. Those are not winning numbers. You don't need me to tell you that. They've had 12 hit by pitches as a staff, also had 7 wild pitches and 3 balks. It has not been good, pitching-wise. And some of that, too, is a byproduct of the schedule they play. Let's just be fair about that and kind of call it for what it is. But I'm always curious to see how people pitch in big moments when the crowd is truly engaged and pulling in the same direction as them. I think the numbers could be better this weekend. I'm expecting competitive games. I really am. I know many of you are like, hey, it's Ole Miss and they're struggling. And listen, let's be honest, we've been our own worst enemy at times. Right? We've not come through. We've had some base running blunders. And then some of that's going to happen over the course of a season. But we can ill afford to go up there and not play clean. We talked about these fielding numbers a little bit too. And I do want to address that just because of the fact you don't see that. It's just one of those things, you just kind of assume But, looking at the fielding percentage for this team, of course it's not great, but it's not one guy. Like you could look up and say, well, the shortstop is killing them, but that really hadn't been the case. It's really been up and down, kind of uniformly spread around the lineup here. Andrew Fisher with 6, Luke Hill, the shortstop, with 5, and that's just kind of the nature of the position at sometimes. Braden Randall's even got 4. Trenton Lyons in limited opportunities has a couple. And so it has just kind of been one of those things they've had to live with. And we know from experience, when you get to be a pitcher and all of a sudden the mindset has to shift. When you don't believe in your defense, you put all the pressure on yourself. And then all of a sudden you start nibbling a little bit, right? You're like, I got to strike everybody out, so I got to throw the perfect pitch. When you don't trust your defense, and the Ole Miss defense is not really given their pitchers a reason to trust them. I know that's what they'll say. I trust my guys. But when you're on the mound towing that rubber, it's a different dynamic. It absolutely is, and for everybody involved. And so, again, it's very reminiscent of what State went through last year. When you're not pitching well, you're not defending well, and that is a recipe for absolute unmitigated disaster. I think everybody kind of sees it for what it is. Looking at these pitching numbers too. As a staff, they've struck out 327. They walked 153. So right there, 2-1. Got to take advantage of that. Bianco's guys too willing to work a count a little bit, but they're not going to swing a lot of wild pitches. I know their fans will probably disagree because you're only acutely aware of what happens to you, right? But I expect State to take the series. I know that some people are hoping for a sweep. I'm hoping for 1-2, but I'm expecting to take 2 of 3. And I love the pitching matchups on Friday and Saturday. I think that favors Mississippi State. And it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens to that crowd on Sunday if we take the first 2. But the most important game is the next one, and that's Cal Stephen going tonight against Riley Maddox. Looking at Riley, too, in conference play. He has made 2 starts. He has lost them both with a 4.22 ERA in conference play and just worked 10.2 innings. So right at 5 innings, they're getting out of him. 7 hits, 8 runs, 5 of them earned, 5 walks, 6 strikeouts. Batting average against is just 189. That looks good, but when you're walking nearly as many as you're striking out, and then your defense is not playing behind you, it kind of lends itself to losing baseball. And so, again, a little bit of a shakeup. I think they're just trying to find it. It's a tough time to find it too at this point in the season. It really is. You'd like to have had a couple guys really established as your dudes. But I want to make sure people understand this. Even if State takes this series, as we expect, I don't think it's over for Ole Miss. And let me explain to you what I mean by that. Yes, they've lost 7 in a row. They're desperate for a win. And again, they've got the home crowd. It's Grove Bowl weekend, right? Be a ton of people up there, really just kind of taking it in festivities. So again, I think that buoys the efforts a little bit. But the schedule gets a little bit easier for them after this. As we mentioned, they got to go to Georgia. Now, what I'll say about that is, if I was Ole Miss, I'd be a lot happier playing those guys in Oxford. But you got to go down to Foley Field that is an absolute launching pad, and they have a launch angle team. And so that's a series that we expect them to lose. But then, you get Alabama in here, and I don't know how good Alabama is. I think they're a middle-of-the-road SEC team, but that's because we played in Oxford. And how many times have we seen it where, like the month of May, Bianco kind of finds a late push? I think that could be the case again this year. Then we have the Governor's game out in Pearl on May 1st. Then you got to go to Auburn. That Auburn offense is really good. It's tough to win on the road, but it's one of those things you look at and say, you know what? What kind of shape mentally is Auburn going to be in by the time Ole Miss gets there? They may already be eliminated from Hoover. It's not mathematically, but for all intents and purposes. Then you get A&M coming into your place. Huge series there, and then you got to go to LSU. And so I say the schedule eases up a little bit, and maybe that's being a little bit generous here. It's mainly toss-ups. There's not a series you look at and say, hey, Ole Miss should definitely win that series. You could be in a situation where you look up and they got 20 losses. I mean, that is absolutely possible, and that's why I think this series is so important for them this weekend. They got to find a way to get some lift. They got to find a way to get some juice. Can you imagine what Charlie Condon could do against a pitching staff struggling to throw strikes down at Foley Field? It could be tough. It absolutely could be. And we're going to look at the standings a little bit later in the show and kind of talk about the weekend. Of course, last night, Kentucky takes care of Auburn. And I can't even remember the other game right now. But we'll get to that. I watched the Kentucky-Auburn game. I guess, I don't know. There's no point in speculating. We'll get to it. That's what Al Gore invented the internet for, so we could look those things up. But I don't know your take on this. But, again, I think if State wins today, I certainly expect them to win with Durangelo on the hill. But if we go up there and pitch it well, we got a really good chance taking this series. And you just never know what's going to happen on Sunday. It could turn into a church league softball game. And I think that kind of favors Mississippi State too. But, we don't know who's going to start on Sunday. And a lot of that's going to depend on who we have to use today. But, bullpen-wise, I think State has been pretty good at times this year. I think you're going to need to be here. Of course, if Cal and Durangelo can give you 6 or 7, it makes life a whole lot easier. Especially when you've got the alien Cam Schulte coming out there. Maybe he gets an inning today, an inning on Sunday, and that's a guy you don't see very often. It's just so difficult to prepare for him. But we need somebody to step up on that back end, and maybe it's Tyler Davis. But I don't think that he's a guy that can throw multiple times on a weekend. I just don't think that's in his skill set. But again, finally, I do expect Mississippi State to take a series, and I'm hesitant to call a sweep. It's so difficult to take a sweep on the road, even though Ole Miss has been swept the last 2 weekends, including one at home. But let's pick at Mississippi State 2 games, Ole Miss 1. All right, here we go. Top 10 list is always brought to you by closewithblair.com. That's CLOSE with Blair, BLAIR.com. Blair Chandler is a mortgage professional. Blair's a guy that knows how to get things done. It's as simple as that. If you're just starting out in life, or maybe you're looking to retire, maybe you're looking for a game day condo, maybe you're looking to downsize, maybe you don't need all that house anymore that you're an empty nester, Blair can accommodate you guys. Blair can get you pre-qualified. And chances are you may already have some equity built up, but you can roll that into a new purchase. Be sure and check out Blair at Close with Blair, but more importantly, just text him or call him directly at 601-500-2344. Again, 601-500-2344. and let him know you heard about him on the Boneyard. Guys, he's got 23 years of experience in the mortgage industry. You could entrust your mortgage in the hands of a lot of people, but you couldn't do any better than what you're going to get with Blair Chandler. Thus, Close with Blair. Top 1% close ratio in the country, back-to-back-to-back years. It's an outstanding individual you're working with there. He's also a fellow Bulldog, a guy that has season tickets in multiple sports. There's a place here in town. My friend, the guy that I trust, the guy that you can trust with some of the most important decisions of your life, your mortgage. Again, that's closeatblair.com. All right. I know that I'm going to upset some people with this list because I've upset myself because I didn't realize how complicated it was going to be. I thought I knew, and the 70s was tough. This is a tough one, man. And I'm not going to give you the honorable mentions just like I did with the 70s. I want you to kind of, I don't want you to say, okay, well, here it is. This is when he's going to fit this band in. Guys, the 80s was an amazing time in rock and roll. It was. And there were a lot of good covers, too. I Love Rock and Roll from Joan Jett. People loved that one. It's a cover. It's true. But I'm not going to lie, man, this is tough. How do you pick one great rock song from each year and then don't duplicate, right? I'm not duplicating per decade. Now, we got one band that was part of our 70s list. It's going to be part of our 80s list. All right? You with me on that? But that's kind of the criteria. So, like, if we have an Ozzy song, that's it for the whole decade. I can't come back and put 3 Ozzy songs because, like, in the 70s, we could have done, 3 or 4 Led Zeppelins. In the 60s, we could have done, a handful of Beatles and the Rolling Stones. So that's the criteria. One rock song per year, per decade, per artist. It's crazy. But here we go. And I'm going to read you Roy's list when I'm done. And you can decide who got it right. Some tough decisions had to be made. But number 1980. AC/DC returns. Brian Johnson's now the singer for the departed Bon Scott. God rest his soul. It's Back in Black. One of the greatest rock songs of all time. One of the best selling rock albums of all time. A lot of people wondered, would they be able to maintain their trajectory by changing singers? Most bands can't do that, but I think they had new life with Brian. So Back in Black is 1980 for you. 1981. Maybe not so much metal or even hard rock. It's just a great rock and roll song, and everybody knows it. They still play it in arenas around the country. We all love Rocky. We do and did. But you're going to have to wait on that one because I got confused. 1981 involves one of the greatest rock recording artists of all time and one of the most legendary guitarists to ever pick up a guitar. Changed the way we looked at it. We had to get Eddie Van Halen in. We had to get Randy Rhoads in too. And so 81's got to be probably the greatest song off the Blizzard of Oz album. It's Crazy Train. Your 81 track is Crazy Train. Now back to 82 and our Rocky, and I apologize for screwing that up, but it's Eye of the Tiger from Survivor. With the original lead singer, Jim didn't join the band until after this album, and of course Vital Signs came out, and they became a lot more rock radio friendly, had tons of hits. That Vital Signs album is absolutely phenomenal from start to finish. It really is. Meridian, Mississippi's own Jim. All right, number 83. Again, a bit of a British invasion with rock. The rock and roll is an American export. A lot of people come back and do a good job with it. These guys are from England, but they sing like they're from America. It's Def Leppard, and it's Photograph, one of the most recognizable opening riffs in all of rock music history. Phil Collin lays it down. Great job. Great job. Phil Collin also in a band at one time with Phil Lewis of LA Guns called Girl. Maybe you didn't know that. Yeah, originally they wrote a song called My Number with Girl that was covered by my friend Steve Blaze and Lillian Axe. I think Steve did a better job. He and Ron Taylor. Amazing job. But there you go. Def Leppard's Photograph from 83. Now, 84, we had new blood in many respects. Their full-length debut album, Out of the Cellar, based on the strength of an incredible video with Milton Berle in it, of all people. It's Round and Round from Rat. Now, of course, we all went back and bought the EP, and what you may not know, and somebody that was very, basically, pretty much synonymous with the 80s rock scene, is the beautiful lady on the cover of Out of the Cellar was Tawny Katane, that many of you got to know through the movie Bachelor Party or Witchboard. And she was also on the cover of the EP, the self-titled EP Rat. And they brought a track called Back for More from the EP onto Out of the Cellar. But Tawny Katane used to date Robin Crosby, who everybody called King. And sadly, we lost him to a drug overdose, but he had contracted AIDS and elected to go out on his terms. 85, I know this is going to be one that people are going to say, Steve, I think you could have gone a different direction here, and that's cool. That's cool. It's the Pet Shop. No, it's not the Pet Shop Boys. One of my favorite bands from the era. I don't know they got enough respect, to be honest with you. George Lynch is the guitar player. I've met George. I've met the singer, Don Dokken. I haven't met Mick or Jeff, but the Under Lock and Key album from Dokken is one of those ones. It was kind of a gateway album for many people. And then we went back and bought Tooth and Nail and Breaking the Chains. But this was really the breakthrough on MTV for Dokken. In 85, we're going In My Dreams. And I know Roy will disagree. 86, this band ruled the world, man, for a while. Just released a new album, as a matter of fact. He is no longer the multicolored, beautiful frontman of Bon Jovi. John Bon Jovi now with the gray hair. Says if he can't do it great, he won't do it at all. That's one of the reasons that Bon Jovi hadn't toured as much as of late. But guys, we had already had Bon Jovi's self-titled album that had Runaway on it, and that was great. And then 7800 Degrees Fahrenheit came out, had In and Out of Love on it, and Silent Night, so many other ones, Tokyo Road. And we felt like this band was maturing, but what we got from them in their third album exceeded everybody's expectations. Slippery When Wet. Now, the original cover had a young lady with a wet T-shirt on, like a wet T-shirt contest. Had a couple rips on the side. It was very sexy, it was. And then Walmart and Kmart and people like that said, oh, no, we can't have this on the shelves. And so they went back and changed the cover, and so now it's like somebody wrote with their finger and like on a wet black surface, Slippery When Wet. And that's the album cover you know, but that was not the album cover they initially intended. Got a chance to see this tour February 13th, 1987 in Biloxi Gulf Coast Coliseum with Cinderella opening. Many of you were there, and many others of you claimed that you were there. But it was an incredible night on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, because we had an opportunity to see Bon Jovi, who at that time was the biggest band in rock and roll. Things got a little more serious in 87, because one of the most iconic rock bands of all time for the American side came out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, like the mid-'80s, things had really gotten bloated, right? I mean, you had a lot of bands, you had the Revlon rockers, a lot of people wearing makeup and out there, and, wearing a lot of spandex, and even Motley did it, and Motley probably did it better than anybody. But all of a sudden, this band came out of L.A. that appeared to have some credibility. It's like I kind of believe what they're singing about. I don't think they're just, studio performers. I think these guys have lived these lyrics. I remember where I was. The first time I heard this song, I saw the video for the very first time on MTV. I was up late, up way too late. Had spent the evening at North Park Mall. Went home to watch Headbangers Ball. Headbangers Ball goes off. I'm just kind of sitting there, being a teenager. And then Welcome to the Jungle came on. And I didn't even know who sang it. It's like, holy smokes, who are these guys? And so I called MTV. I'm like, what was that jungle song got us played? And kind of find out the switchboard was getting overrun. It's like, oh, it's Guns N' Roses. Click, Guns N' Roses. We're done. I go out the very next day. Just so happened that Bebop Record Shop had the album, which in hindsight makes no sense whatsoever. Of course, they were on a major label with Geffen. Had one copy of the cassette of Appetite for Destruction, and I bought it. I still have it around here. It's a collector's item. So Welcome to the Jungle for 87. That's your track. Number 8, 1988, and I was reluctant to put this band on here, but I couldn't in good faith do it. The most engagement we've ever gotten on a top 10 list involves this band. That's Poison. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge Poison fan. I'm not. I think in many respects, they're what many people make fun of the 80s era. And Bret Michaels, not a great singer. He's a good singer. He's not great. My wife would disagree. I was like, you're kidding me, right? You think that Bret Michaels can sing as good as Ronnie James Dio or David Coverdale? Come on. Come on. Not a chance. But that said, Nothing But a Good Time was an anthemic track. For a time in our lives, man, we're just kind of figuring it all out. And the lyrics of that song that Bret wrote are really good, too. My favorite Poison song is Something to Believe In, but Nothing But a Good Time is the quintessential 1980s rock and roll song. It really is. And I think there is a lot of filler in Poison albums. I really do. I know when Look What the Cat Dragged In came out, it's like everybody looked and it's like, oh my gosh, look at these guys, all this makeup on the front of this, what's happening? And then you kind of got to see them in videos, and they were a little more fun-loving than that. And I remember when they did the I Want Action video, Ricky Rocket is sitting, drummer from Poison, is in the beginning of the video, he's sitting in like a diner booth, and he had on a Cinderella t-shirt. And I loved Cinderella, still do. Love Tom Kiefer. And I thought, well, you know what? Maybe these guys aren't all bad. So it kind of turned me. But, yeah, you go back and listen to, outside of Talk Dirty to me, there's not much on that first album. I mean, there's really not. There's really not. But I thought that Open Up and Say Ah, of course, another cover with some controversy. It was this kind of this devilish-looking lady that had the long tongue. And everybody's like, we can't put this on the shelf. And so they blacked it out and just put her eyes out there. So if you've got that original cover, you've got a bit of a collector's item because not too many of those copies were sold. But that, again, was an album that really kind of pushed Poison to the forefront. I think Flesh and Blood kind of took them over the top. But we couldn't get through the 80s without mentioning Motley Crue. And I nearly put Looks to Kill in there because I love Looks to Kill. But I thought, you know what, if some of these bands weren't around in the late 80s, and at least their offerings of the late 80s were not very good. I thought Motley's comeback album, Dr. Feelgood, was incredible. So we're going with the title track, Dr. Feelgood, for 89. And I remember I got it when they debuted the video. My best friend recorded it on VCR. And I think we watched it over and over and over and over again. We're just so happy Crue was back. Because I'll be honest with you, Girls, Girls, Girls is a good album. It's got a couple of good tracks on there that are, Wild Side, of course, and Girls, Girls, Girls really have some staying power. But, Theater of Pain was a little bit disjointed. Still some huge hits on there. Your Home Sweet Home, of course, Smoking in the Boys' Room. And Girls, 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 I thought was a little radio-friendly, right? I don't think they allowed Mick to really stand out. I thought when Feel Good came out, I thought, hey, this is a step back towards Shout at the Devil. This band has more of an edge again. And I thought it was a great, great, great comeback album. And, of course, Theater of Pain, of course, is all after Vince Neil's legal troubles and stuff. And so you can kind of understand there wasn't a lot of good things kind of going on in their lives at the time. But Girls was huge. I mean, when Girls, Girls, Girls came out, everybody had it. I mean, even the middle school kids. Everybody had it. Whitesnake opened on that tour. And there is no mention of Whitesnake on our list. And I tried. I really did. Whitesnake, one of my favorite bands of all time. I mentioned Tawny Katane, too. We talked Tawny Katane and VCRs. And the Here I Go Again video, we all wore that VCR out trying to get just the right scene, the scene I'm talking about. When they're in the Jaguar riding down the road and the wind is blowing, there's just that one scene. Everybody's like, It's true. It's true. She was a beautiful woman. She really was. A beautiful and tortured soul. But no Whitesnake, no Journey either. Yeah, and I nearly went with Journey early on, but I decided to go with the Tiger. But I thought if I put Don't Stop Believing on here, some people would be really upset. So you know what? We're done. But Eye of the Tiger, huge hit too. But Don't Stop Believing is the most downloaded rock song of all time. Did you know that? True story. Absolute true story. And it kind of got new life at the end of Sopranos, right? When for those of you that watch The Sopranos, everybody's like, hey, what's that song? But that's my list. And so let me give you the rundown of Roy's list. I just opened it up, and surprisingly, we have some of the same songs together. So it makes you feel a little bit better about my list. 1980 for Roy, Back in Black. Yep, you got that. 81, Crazy Train. Yep. 82, Eye of the Tiger. 83, Photograph. Now in 84, he didn't go with Rat. He went with Van Halen's Jump. In 85, he went Money for Nothing from Dire Straits. I could get behind that. I'm a little more of an Edge guy. 86, Just Like Me, You Give Love a Bad Name. And 87, instead of Guns N' Roses' Welcome to the Jungle, he did go with Whitesnake's Here I Go Again. He puts Jungle in at 88, but it actually came out in December of 87. So a bit of a technicality there. And then in 89, he goes off the script and goes, Tom Petty, I Won't Back Down. So a lot similar, for sure, which makes me feel better about the list. Tom Petty's not on my list, nor is Dire Straits. But there you go. Your list may differ from ours. And again, I don't know that you could go wrong. What an amazing time in music. What an amazing time in rock and roll. But how interesting is it that, if the first four, Roy and I picked the same. And so what do we have? Six of the top 10, the same songs? Pretty cool, man. It really is. But again, thanks for your support of the top 10 list. It's been really fun. And again, on Monday, it's going to be another tough one. We get in the 90s. And when we get into the 2000s, it's going to be a little easier to pick, to be honest with you. There will be no Everclear or Blink-182 or Green Day on any of my lists. It won't. But nevertheless, 90s will be great, for sure. And I'll take my bias off. There will be some Nirvana track on there. There will be. Just so you know. As much as I don't like it. I will admit it. But yeah, reach out, let us know your ideas, right? And Roy just texted 6 out of 10 the same. Yep. So you understand my point. We enjoy doing this, and we'd love to do your list. Reach out to Roy on Twitter at Dawgmatic67. It's DAWGMATIC67. I'm on all forms of social media at Scout Steve R. You can find our great top 10 list on Spotify. Also under Dawgmatic67, DAWGMATIC67. All right. Next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. If you're looking for Mississippi State gear, whether it be for your wardrobe, your home, your office, your pet, your fan cave, no matter what it is, you can find it at Campus Bookmart. Miss Kathy Brown does an amazing job buying Mississippi State merchandise. If you're looking for that special something, maybe it's a gift for a graduate, maybe you get a diploma frame. Maybe you hadn't considered that. Graduation's coming up, and somebody in the family's got to buy that diploma frame. Grandparents, it's always a good gift for you to get, right? Maybe you've got a young person that's buying a home for the first time. Maybe they used Blair, and they bought a home. So a housewarming gift. You can find some Mississippi State merchandise there. It's not just a T-shirt shop. Everything you need to represent your fandom available to you at Campus Bookmart. And if you can't make it to town, let me encourage you to visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. It's BSR. It stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than 75 bones, absolutely incomplete. All right, let's look around the SEC. We talked a little bit about that this week. I don't know if you guys are aware, kind of what's happened in our league. We mentioned last night that Kentucky, I had a chance to watch that, man. It's like Kentucky has the closer in. Auburn has runners on first and second, nobody out in a one-run ball game. You're thinking, okay, well, here it is. Auburn's chance to get a big win, and they get a big punch-out of McMurray, who's had a huge year for Auburn. They get him to strike out, kind of a questionable strike two. He didn't like it. I don't know that I did either, to be quite honest with you. I'm sure Butch didn't like it. But had a few things to say, and then he strikes out kind of weakly on a pretty nasty slider. And then they get a ground ball and get the 5-3 double play to get out of it. And that's your ball game. And Kentucky wins 6-5. I think we're in a situation now that maybe we need to admit that Kentucky is better than we thought. Guys, they're 12-1 in the SEC, which is the best start in conference, in program history in conference play. Pretty impressive group, for sure. I don't know if you've kept up with them at all, but you start thinking about this now. Guys, they're probably 4 to 5 wins away from hosting. And I keep expecting at some point for the air to go out of the balloon, but that team's got some toughness. Now, Georgia, in a Church League softball quality game, takes care of Missouri last night 15-10. And we talked about, what a great job that our group did against Charlie Condon last week. Just 3 hits, a couple singles, and 1 solo home run. Condon got going last night again. It was a very interesting ball game for a while. Missouri takes a 1-0 lead. Georgia ties it in the third and then finally gets loose there, scoring 10 runs over the 4th and 5th. to kind of put this thing away. And you begin to wonder, hey, is this going to be a 10-run roll game? But then Mizzou strikes back with 5 in the 6th and then another in the 7th to kind of make it a game again. All of a sudden you look up and you're like, hey, this was an 11-1 ball game. And all of a sudden it's 11-7. Missouri's in the Georgia bullpen. So big things could happen. Georgia offense answers back with a couple. They trade some runs there in the 8th. And, of course, Georgia wins 15-10. Jarvis Evans, again, gets the start last night. Of course, he started for Georgia last weekend against Mississippi State on Friday. And so Goldstein, still not right. They said he had a little bit of tightness last weekend. They scratched him Thursday night and informed our staff Friday morning that Jarvis Evans would be pitching. And so Evans goes 5 1/3, 97 pitches, gives up 4 hits, 4 walks, 9 Ks, and 3 earned runs in the ball game to earn the victory there. But tons of hits for sure in this ball game, for sure. And just to kind of let you go back and just think about the whole Charlie Condon thing. I mean, the fact that he hit a couple tanks in this ball game, I think says a lot about your Bulldogs. They're able to pitch him as well as he did. And again, it says a lot about Justin Parker's game plan. Charlie Condon goes 4 for 4 last night. Scores 3 runs, 5 RBI, a couple tanks. Also got walked twice, so he reaches base 6 times last night, one of those intentionally. So great job there. And so, of course, Georgia and Kentucky going for the series win today. And, man, poor Auburn, man. It never seems to get any easier for them. I mean, it really doesn't. Really doesn't. So all times Eastern here, I guess we can make the change because it's a free country. Missouri and Georgia will get underway at 5 p.m. Central. And then South Carolina and Florida will play game 1 down in Gainesville and at Condren Family Ballpark. And Florida really struggling here as of late. I still like Florida at home. I'm not completely sold on the South Carolina pitching staff, but I'll tell you this, the Florida pitching staff has not lived up to expectations. All right, 6 p.m. start tonight down in College Station. Vanderbilt will be at A&M. That'll be a series of interest there. I'm pulling for A&M. We're not going to catch A&M, so I need them to push Vanderbilt farther down the standings. We mentioned Kentucky, Auburn, of course. That'll get underway at 6. Alabama and Arkansas in Tuscaloosa. That's also a 6 p.m. start. 6:30 out in Knoxville. Central Time, LSU and Tennessee will get together. That's a tough assignment for LSU, and you see they've changed their pitching rotation as well. I don't know if you've noticed that. And of course, State and Ole Miss will be at 7 o'clock. But picking your winners here, obviously we're going to go with Georgia. And again, I'm going to go with Florida. I don't have a lot of confidence in that pick. I'm taking A&M. I'm taking Kentucky. I'm taking Arkansas. I'm taking Tennessee. And I'm taking Mississippi State. So you're going to have a couple road teams win this week, I think. I think you'll see Kentucky, Arkansas, and Mississippi State all take their respective series on the road. I mean, the first few weeks, it was all trending towards the home teams. But those things are short-lived. I mean, the talent is talent, right? I mean, that's just kind of how it all – eventually, talent catches up, right? That's just kind of how things work in life. Let's pull up the standings here, just kind of give you an idea of where things stand as we go into Friday's action. All right, Kentucky, 12-1 now. Best record in the Southeastern Conference, 28-5 overall. They won 9 of the last 10. Vanderbilt's right there at 8-4, and I think we can catch them this weekend with a little help. A&M and Vanderbilt both 8-4. I guess we're only 2 games behind A&M. I guess theoretically we could catch them. I just think they're a little bit better team than us, and I don't know how difficult the schedule is going to be down the stretch. But Vanderbilt's 8-4, Tennessee 7-5, South Carolina 6-6, Florida 6-6, Georgia 6-7, thanks to Mississippi State. Missouri's 4-9, Arkansas 11-1, A&M 8-4, State 6-6, Alabama 4-8, LSU 3-9, Ole Miss 3-9, Auburn 2-11. And again, Auburn the first team in the league to double-digit losses. I don't think anybody expected that. Even 2 weeks ago, we thought Missouri would be the first. And then they sweep Florida, which I'm still trying to wrap my mind around. It's absolutely nuts. But again, we talk about you kind of need to be at 14 wins to really be in serious consideration to make the tournament. And Auburn right now, 13 games in with 17 left, has 11 losses. And just let that marinate for a second. They got to go 12-5 in the final 17 games to get to 14. It's just not going to happen. It's not coming together. And that offense at Auburn is really good. And kind of looking at some numbers here too, just so you guys know, looking at team numbers rather than individual numbers here. Tennessee hitting 338, leading the league. Your Bulldogs right there in the meaty part of the curve at 286, tied with Kentucky at 286. And you look at that and say, what's the difference in the two, right? What's the difference? They're 12-1, and I think some of that's a quality competition, but also, too, State has blown some games late in the bullpen, as you guys are well aware. Arkansas leads the SEC with a 2.56 ERA. Mississippi State right there at 6 with 4.15. So much better for us. But when you start breaking down, kind of how things look, for this weekend, we mentioned earlier in the week that State's number one in the SEC in fielding. Ole Miss is dead last. And team pitching, Ole Miss, team ERA, next to last at 5.85. And it's even worse in conference play we've already discussed. And looking at team batting, Ole Miss about 3 spots behind Mississippi State, hitting 272. Missouri with the worst batting average in the league at 250. Charlie Condon, of course, still absolutely killing it. 62 hits on the year. It's nuts. 48 runs scored, 49 runs driven in, home runs 23. It's ridiculous. Total bases 145. And again, it speaks well to what our group's been able to do. But I'm expecting, again, a very interesting weekend in college baseball. You never know what's going to happen. But I think things are beginning to kind of take shape, and I think people kind of realize who's good and who's not. That's why it's so important. I think if you ask anybody in the league that didn't have a rooting interest in this series between State and Ole Miss this weekend, say, who do you expect to win and why? I think most people would pick Mississippi State to win. Even though Ole Miss is playing at home, I think people would say, Mississippi State's a better team, and Ole Miss has lost 7 in a row. But all that understood, I don't expect the same Ole Miss team to come out there. I mean, granted, they hadn't been able to sign any free agents, but they're going to be juiced up for this one. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So we're going to have to go out there and play baseball. And again, an early start would mean everything to our pitchers. Cal Stevens, a guy, obviously, that we feel like we figured some things out with him. 3 quality starts in a row. Probably his deserved better run support at times. But we've got to go out there and play good offensive offensive baseball this weekend, because this is a pitching staff that I think can be had, and certainly a defense that is willing to give you extra outs. And when they give them to you, you have to take full advantage of them. That's the absolute bare minimum of that. Good teams make bad teams pay for key mistakes. And there have been some times this year we've done that, other times we have not. And so my hope is we are maturing and kind of rallying. And as I mentioned last night on the Dude Effect, and if you hadn't seen that, you can find it on my Twitter and Facebook. It's a show I do every Thursday with my son, Ani Robertson, who played college baseball. I mentioned, this is the first game back with Johnny Long. And so we've had a week to let all that marinate and flush, right? The positive feelings of, hey, we found a way to get it done without our leader. Now he's back. And Johnny Long will probably be all jacked up tonight, ready to do the right thing. He's a veteran guy. And so I think not playing that UAB game, there's a silver lining to that too, in addition to the fact not taking the RPI hit, but also of note to be able to take the field in an emotional series with an emotional lift. And again, I think coming off winning that game on Sunday, coming from behind the way we did, there is a belief in this team that we're going to win. And that's the thing that I've learned about life, and it's not just about sports or about recovery or about really anything. There's 2 kinds of people in life. There are those that think they're going to make it and those that think they're not. More times than not, they're both right. And this is an Ole Miss team that has really struggled. All the pressure is on them. They're playing at home in front of big crowds with their backs against the wall against their rival, a team that is on them since 2016. We're 21-6 during that stretch. And so it's one of those things you get a lead on them, and all of a sudden it starts feeling like, here we go again. Here we go again in honor of Whitesnake and David Coverdale. That's my point about every bit of that. Is like, hey, let's go out there and flip the script, because you've got a very angry fan base. And again, I have very few Ole Miss friends, but I had one tell me earlier this week, If we lose this series, it's going to be a PR nightmare for Mike Bianco. If they get swept, it's going to be 10 times worse. And I think, again, in many respects, that this is a team that maybe is better than their record. But a team like that can be dangerous. They can also be a team that folds. And that's what State has to do. You have to continue to add pressure. You have to continue to tack on runs. You don't want to get into a late ball game and let that crowd kind of will them to a win. Again, huge series. And I have a lot of respect for Mike Bianco. I mean, he is basically the tradition of Ole Miss baseball. They didn't have a lot of tradition before we got there. Of course, Swayze did some good things when he was there. Thus, they named the field after him. Jay Gibbs had some good years at times. But Mike Bianco has taken Ole Miss baseball to a different level. And so, they've made this rivalry a rivalry. And even though many Mississippi State fans see LSU as the chief baseball rival, you've already dispatched those guys. And now you got to go take care of these guys. And not just because of the fact what it does for recruiting, but what it does for fundraising. And I think if you're Chris Lemonis, you started to get some people back on the bandwagon. You lose this series, you're going to lose those fence sitters. You win this series, then all of a sudden there's a lot of people say, okay, yeah, we're back. We've got a winning record in the league now. We're nearly halfway through the SEC schedule. Okay, it's okay to believe. I'm okay to get hurt again, right? But this is a different baseball team. The numbers certainly suggest that. But this could be one of those series you look back and say, you know what, that was kind of a defining moment in the year. And it certainly needs to be. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. Man, the Stark Vegas Clubhouse is fantastic. I've been out there multiple times. Some friends of mine use the facility. You should too. If you're bringing a large group to town, rather than go out there and rent 5 hotel rooms and then have to just kind of hang around that lobby and have all those interlopers come over and join your conversation, you can have a little privacy. Kind of be tucked away just 5 miles away from the Mississippi State campus. Makes it very easy to commute back and forth. It's quiet out there, plenty of room, got full-service kitchen, got the wet bar out there, so you can go buy some groceries. You can stock the facility with some adult beverages and just kind of chill all weekend. Yeah, right? I don't know, maybe you want to do some DoorDash. It could be your thing. Maybe it's a guy's weekend, maybe it's a bachelor weekend, maybe it's a girl's weekend, a couple's weekend, maybe it's a family affair, maybe it's a work group. Maybe you're bringing a work group to town and you're going to work in the Golden Triangle and you need a mission control. Well, Stark Vegas Clubhouse can accommodate you. Some very expansive communal areas there where you could work and you could retire to your personal quarters in the evening. I don't know that anything could be better. It's just economically feasible. It really is. And the facilities there are so incredibly nice. When you Google Stark Vegas Clubhouse, the Facebook page is going to come up, and you can peruse through the pictures there and see the amenities that are available to you there, right? And you're also going to see some booking options. You can book through Airbnb. You can book through VRBO. But if you book through the Evolve website, I can save you 10%. That's a big deal right there, saving you 10%. It doesn't seem like a lot, but hey, just by knowing a promo code, just by being a part of our Boneyard family, you can save some cash. Use promo code BSR10 when you book through the Evolve website. Be sure and book today the next time you want to bring a large group to Starkville for the be work or play. All right, there's been some developments over on the basketball front. We have confirmed now that former Drexel Dragons forward, 6'10", 265-pounder Amari Williams headed to Starkville for an official visit. As a matter of fact, he and his folks are, he and the people that are with him are on their way here now. And, Justin Frommer breaks that news a little bit earlier today. And a really good job by Justin kind of working the sources, kind of confirming some things with multiple parties. We're able to get that story out for you guys. We expect State to be really bullish, as we mentioned, on the 5 spot in the portal. And, Williams could be a guy. I mean, he certainly could be. 12.2 points per game last year, 7.8 rebounds, handed out just under 2 assists, and 51.7% from the field. Similar build, I guess, to Tolu Smith. We need a guy that's going to be very aggressive at the 5. We need a guy that's going to go up hard and finish around the basket. There were times last year we were kind of reluctant at times to do that. But, that's a big deal for sure. And you guys are well aware, we've had some outgoing portal traffic, and that's to be expected. And now the thing about Chris Jans that gives me so much confidence in this, right? I mean, this is a guy that comes from a junior college background. Now, the level of play is different here, and obviously you're recruiting against some big people, obviously, and NIL is a factor. But Chris Jans is a guy that understands you're always building for the next year, right? Like in junior college, there's never any continuity. It's always about what's the best roster I can assemble for the next year. I think that benefits Jans in this new transfer portal NIL marketplace because of the fact that he understands, number one, a lot of these guys are a one-year rental. It's true. In addition to that, too, I think he understands how to kind of meld a roster together based on the portal, based on the returning guys. You can't abandon high school recruiting, but you've got to be able to go out there and find people that improve. You've got to add competition at positions. And if you have guys that don't fit your system or your ideology, you got to get them out of your program. You got to create some room for the guys that do. I mean, this is not the Boy Scouts. This is the Southeastern Conference in every aspect. And listen, and I get some people are, kind of upset, that Jans hadn't signed the extension. I'm a little concerned about that too, but I'm not overly concerned about it. I mean, and obviously, with Pope going from BYU to Kentucky, not that I thought Jans would be a candidate there. I think that's a domino that kind of falls in our favor because I don't think Chris Jans would go to BYU. I don't know that, but I don't think that. And so I don't think it's going to be like if Nate Oates had left to go from Alabama to Kentucky, that might be in a situation we had to deal with. But so I'm not overly concerned about that. And I truly believe that we are moving in the right direction here with men's basketball. And yes, I'm disappointed the way the season ended. But I got a lot of faith in Chris Jans. And I know that Chris Jans and his staff will go out here and do what they can to construct a roster that's going to be very, very competitive for you. I still think Chris Jans is guys that mirrors our values. This is a guy that grew up on a double-wide trailer on a gravel road. I mean, he knows what it's like to come from modest upbringings. I think that, number one, does it allow him to kind of identify with our fans and our core values here at Mississippi State. I think in addition to that, he understands a lot of these kids come from very humble beginnings and that college is a chance for them to change their family tree really forever and that they can kind of build upon the life that their parents gave them and they can give their children perhaps a better life than they had because they had the value of an education. And I think that's an important aspect of it. Sometimes we forget, right? Everybody's not going to go play pro ball, but it's about learning, getting an education, get a college degree, and entering the workforce with some positive momentum. And if you don't think these young people love Chris Jans, you're kidding yourself. Everybody that you'll talk to around men's basketball will tell you that Chris Jans takes care of these guys. They all understand they can depend on him. He coaches them now. Don't get me wrong. It's not a friendly, friend-to-friend type deal. He is their coach, but by that time, too, he's also their mentor. And I think that he is a guy that speaks a language those guys can easily understand. So not the least bit worried about that. I think that you guys should have a lot of confidence, kind of what's happening, with men's basketball. Of course, we've had some changes on the women's basketball side, too, Earlier today, it was reported that Romani Parker had entered a transfer portal on the Mississippi State women's side of things. That's going to be a new look roster. It is. And it's really Sam Purcell's opportunity really to kind of build upon what he did last year. We think he did a really good job in the portal last year. We kind of ran out of gas late. Of course, getting Jerkayla Jordan back is huge. That's a centerpiece. I got to find somebody that can play the five for us. But, we've had some players on the roster that maybe weren't quite what we needed them to be. And I'm not going to name any names, but there's some players that were maybe marginal SEC takes. And rather than sit back and just say, hey, maybe we'll figure it out next year, you got to make the move. Once you know that a player can't play at this level, you're really doing them an injustice, right? Now, speaking of that sort of stuff, Haley Van Lith, you guys know her, played at OSU, also played at Louisville. And so there's a relationship there with Sam Purcell. She's taken official visit to Mississippi State. It appears that some other organizations are now reporting, what we have reported. But Haley Van Lith, good defender, good guard, and obviously we have a relationship there. You feel optimistic about it, but you can't be in a situation where you're like, hey, this is definitely going to happen. We do feel good about it. Getting her on campus obviously is job one, and you know how these things work in the portal, right? Especially on the football side, once they come in, if they don't commit on the visit, the chances of them committing are pretty slim. Jacoby Jackson last year was probably one of the exceptions. He goes, hey, he told me, I'm going to take all my visits, and then I'm going to decide. That's exactly what he did. But by and large, when they get on campus, they kind of get hotboxed a little bit, right? It's like, hey, we got 5 other players at this spot, and if you want it, you need to let us know, and if not, we got to go to the next guy or the next lady. That happens a lot, and it's not just at Mississippi State, it's everywhere. You want to get that commitment because once they get off your campus, the chances of you getting them back, unless they're showing back up as an opponent, are pretty slim. And so we feel like with these visits that there will be some commitments. Now, of course, next week, officially the football transfer portal opens. Now, when it closes, that doesn't mean everybody has to make a decision by then. Some of these decisions will go on into the month of May, but we expect there to be some movement there. Of course, Mississippi State's bringing in some running backs and some edges and some defensive backs, and that's big. And again, it's a similar situation, probably more so in football than in basketball. Basketball, a lot of times these guys hold out and kind of take their trips and see what their NIL packages look like and all that sort of stuff. Football is a much different dynamic, and so we do expect there to be some movement pretty quickly with the portal on the football side, and you're going to have some outgoing traffic too. Right? We're all aware of this. And I want to make sure that people understand because we often live in the big maroon bubble and we think, it only happens to us. Guys, it happens to everybody. I haven't done the numbers in a while because I've been so busy writing another book, as you guys are well aware. And so I haven't sat down and run the numbers from December. And then we'll add this too. And so, again, the numbers of those high school players, the percentage of those guys that sign with an SEC school and ultimately leave are going to go up. We were 1 in 3 going into December. And now you've had 2 other periods. Obviously, you don't expect a lot of freshmen, first-year guys that have signed, many who haven't reported, to enter the portal. But you will have some sophomores and juniors and perhaps some seniors on the move. And so that number, the percentage of high school players that sign with an SEC school and ultimately transfer is going to go up. I don't know if it reaches 1 in 2 this cycle, but we're certainly trending in that direction. And, of course, NIL is quite the enticement for a lot of these people that it's like, hey, I'm having a great college experience, but it would be better if I had a few more dollars in my pocket. And you guys know some of these dollars are not insignificant sums of money. So I think it's important to understand, don't get too far down when you see a player that you have grown to love or grown to at least like a lot leave the program, because sometimes it's not their decision. Now, ultimately, getting in the portal ultimately boils down to them, but it could be a situation where a coach has kind of sat them down and say, listen, you can stay here. However, this is what we see your role as going forward. And if you're not comfortable with that, we fully understand if you transfer. Nobody ever signs on just to be a bench warmer. Nobody ever aspires and say, you know what, I just want to be on this team. Not when I've left another program seeking additional playing time, right? And so it's important to understand that nobody is going to make a move that they didn't feel better their circumstances. And that's perfectly okay. Sometimes we hold student athletes to a higher standard than we hold ourselves. And that's a big part of this too, right? I mean, we all have one life to live. And you only get a short time in life to play sports. And so we shouldn't begrudge a person that leaves our program trying to find a better situation for themselves. That may not be with an SEC school. I mean, I've ran those numbers too. It's crazy how many of those players left us that signed under Joe Moorhead that went down a level. And that may just be G5. But some others went 1AA. It's not like they left here and went to Alabama. You had guys that left here and went somewhere else seeking playing time. It's like, hey, I think I can play at Southern Miss or at Murray State or at Middle Tennessee State or at Memphis. I get it. So that's an important thing to consider too. Sometimes we interject our own beliefs and our own fandom into these equations, not really appreciating the fact these are human beings that have a life and have dreams and aspirations of their own. And not everybody leaves for mental health. Most of the time, people leave because of the fact that they want to play. And that's perfectly okay. Now, let's also hold the same standard to those players that transfer in, right? They're leaving a fan base, they're leaving a program, they're leaving teammates just the way that our players are leaving. It's like, hey, I'm so upset this guy left, but man, I love Makai Polk, right? And so we got to understand there's always going to be a love me not type deal with every bit of this, because anytime that you introduce economics and revenue into a situation, the relationship gets a lot more tenuous, right? That's why I was so impressed yesterday. We had a chance to talk to Grant Jackson. Grant Jackson from West Lincoln High School. It was a Joe Moorhead signee. Marcus Johnson recruited him, old country boy. Every time I talked to him, he was catching a fish or baling hay or feeding the horses, whatever, He is a Mississippi State guy. And they chose him to bring up, hey, this is a guy that we want to represent us after post-practice. Now, Grant Jackson has not played a lot. And in many respects, I would say Grant Jackson, his career has not been what I expected it to be. However, with the change in coaching staff and a change in philosophy and Cody Kennedy being here now, Grant has kind of been reborn in many respects. And he's running, second team, I guess, at first guard, left guard and right guard. But he's in the rotation now. And you could see in his face yesterday how happy he is. There were times that I would see him leaving the football complex and he didn't look like he was having a lot of fun. I think the coaching change has allowed him a fresh start. And now he's benefiting from that. Now, Grant Jackson, if he had elected to transfer last year, people would have said, you know what, I get it, man. I get it. The guy came in here. We were expecting big things from him, and it hadn't materialized, and maybe he needs to go to Southern Miss. Maybe. Something of that matter. But that isn't what happened. And I asked him about that because I think it was important. I said, Grant, you could have easily transferred and everybody would have understood. But you elected to stay. Why? Why did you decide to stay here at Mississippi State when so many other people in the same circumstance would have transferred and in many cases have transferred? I think it's important to understand. I think it's an important question, which is the reason that I asked it, right? I think everybody probably maybe wondered about that as well. It's like, hey, what's the deal here? What's this guy doing? Is he just going to hang around till we make him leave? But I asked him, Grant, hey, what's the deal? And he said, ever since I was little, I've been a loyal person. When I don't get my way, I'm not just going to take the easy way out. I love Mississippi State, and I'm going to stick my time out here and prove I can play here. Amen, Grant. One of the things that I don't like about the transfer portal, and of course they've made it, a little better, with the windows and things like that, so you don't have quite as many emotional decisions. But Grant Jackson's like, you know what? I love Mississippi State. I want to be a Bulldog. And I'm going to prove to myself and to everybody else that I belong here. And yes, I could just go get in the portal and go somewhere else and probably get on the field, but I want the challenge of playing for the team that I've always wanted to play for. And rather than turn tail and run, I'm going to stay here and stick it out, and I'm going to work. Those are the kinds of people that win in life. It's true. Now, there are other people that get in the portal for a variety of reasons, and sometimes it's, hey, me and this position coach just don't jive. I think that I've signed on for one offense. I'm getting another. So I got to reboot my career. And that's okay too. I'm not going to judge anybody on that. But I'm going to praise the people that have the mindset of Grant Jackson. They're going to say, you know what? Hey, this hasn't gone the way that I wanted it to go. Such is life. Things are going to happen in life that maybe I don't expect or maybe I haven't planned on. And rather than just say, you know what, this sucks, I'm leaving, it's everybody's fault, I got something to prove to myself. And sometimes you're the only person that you truly need to prove anything to. And that's why Grant Jackson is a hero of mine today. Because of his love for Mississippi State and his commitment to his word. Now, I'm not going to sit here and be critical of people that leave, because I never know anybody's situation. We've had people leave in the past that perhaps wanted to get a little closer to home. Maybe mom's not doing well. Maybe there's been a death in the family. Maybe there's an illness in the family. And you know what? I just need to be a little bit closer. I need to be a little bit closer to my family so they can come enjoy this college experience with me, and God bless everybody involved. But it was very refreshing to hear Grant Jackson utter those words post-practice yesterday. A guy that I don't think we've ever had Grant in post-practice media the whole time he's been here, which says a lot about his testament. And it says a lot about his progress this year as a player. And so I'm going to ask you guys to do something for me. I'm going to ask that you make Grant Jackson one of your favorite players. If you want to go buy one of his jerseys, that's cool too. Okay, I'm not saying you have to do that. But I think Grant Jackson deserves to be praised because Grant Jackson is one of the things that is right about college athletics. Grant Jackson kind of has an old school mentality, and some people would say, Grant, you're being a fool here. You could transfer, maybe get $10,000, $15,000 to transfer somebody else or more. You know, maybe there's a program out there that's going to let you start. And he goes, you know what? No. I made these people at Mississippi State a commitment. And I put my name on a document, and I said, you know what? I'm here. And they haven't told me to leave yet, so I'm going to stay. And maybe I hadn't played as much as I want to, but I'm going to work hard. What do you think that guy is going to be like as a father? What lessons do you think he's going to tell his kids? He's like, you know, hey, when I went to Mississippi State, the first couple of years it was rough. I got knocked around a little bit. And, we kind of expect that with guys coming in from lower level football, right? But, kids, I tell you what, I stuck it out. I stuck it out. I honored my commitment. I honored the promise that I made to myself. And I found a way to get on that field. And so when you see Grant Jackson on that field, let's raise our voices in celebration. Because we want people like that to win. And not just win in football, but win in life. When people do things for the right reasons. And everybody's reasoning is different. Again, I'm not sitting in judgment. I'm sitting here in praise and admiration of Grant Jackson. A guy that many of our fans don't even know his name. They knew his name on signing day. If you followed recruiting, you thought, well, I kind of like this kid, But maybe he's kind of slipped from your memory a little bit. Maybe he's down your ladder of awareness because he just hadn't done much. But you know what? I want guys like that in my locker room. I want guys like that in my meeting room and on the field and in the huddle. I want guys that want to be here. Now, one of the things that I have shared many times with you guys on this show, Mississippi State is where I want to be. I want to cover Mississippi State for the duration of my life. That's my commitment. That's my dream. I'm living my dream, and I am among the most blessed people in the world to be able to do that. I don't take any of those days for granted. To be able to walk out there and ask your head football coach a question, to get you guys an answer about a topic that you're curious about, I take that responsibility very seriously. And I want people at Mississippi State that want to be at Mississippi State. I don't care if it's the coach or the cleaning crew. I don't want anybody on this campus that doesn't feel like it's among the most amazing experiences they've ever had. Because that's what's going to propel us forward. Sometimes you get these carpetbaggers, right? You get these people that come in, and they do a good job. But many of them are looking for the next stop. I want Mississippi State, in the minds of many people, to be a destination. Now, I'm not saying that I don't want people with ambition. I absolutely do. And sometimes we have people that come through, and you know what? We're just grateful for the time they gave us and the efforts they made to advance Mississippi State's interest. But I don't want anybody here that doesn't want to be here. Again, there's some people that come here, spend 2 or 3 years, they learn some things, they improve some things, and they get promoted and take a job somewhere else. I don't want an assistant coach here that doesn't want to be a head coach someday, right? There are some guys out there that are built to be career assistants, and that's perfectly okay. But I want people to come here and say, you know what, I'm going to Mississippi State because that makes me better. I have an opportunity to improve at Mississippi State. I have an opportunity to improve the situation at Mississippi State. I don't want somebody here that just needs a job. It's like, well, what are you going to do? Well, I don't know. I put in an application at Mississippi State. What are you going to do? I'll take whatever they got. I just want to have a job, right? Rather than, hey, I want to work at Mississippi State. Wouldn't it be amazing to be around our student athletes every day, to be able to educate the young minds of the Mississippi State student body? Wouldn't it be amazing? And so when I encounter people that don't share that same ideal, it's a little unsettling to me. Because I know how much I love Mississippi State. I know how much you love Mississippi State. And I want everybody drawing a check from Mississippi State to feel the same way about this incredible institution that we do. I don't think that's that much to ask. And it would be one of the first things that I would put on the list of qualifications, right? I'm not saying that we all have to hire our own kind. Sometimes you got to get fresh blood in here to get you fresh ideas. But I want their full attention and all of their efforts to be about advancing Mississippi State. And in the process of that, if they advance their own career, that's a great thing too. Because we have a lot of people that have passed through and done some amazing things, and they're doing good things elsewhere. And now we have friends around the conference. Now we have friends when they go have those big votes that while they may represent another institution secondary in their mind, is, you know what, the folks at Mississippi State, the folks that were so good to me when I was there, good to me and my family. And I want to congratulate the city of Starkville for being voted the best small town in the South. How incredible is that? And how about our best boy, Dak, being named the best live college mascot in the country? What a great day for Starkville that was. The city gets a thumbs up, as does Bully. And I want to personally thank Coach 3 or Letterman on Twitter for pushing the vote out to his followers to vote for Bully. Thank you very much for that, Coach. If you guys don't know Coach, I suggest following him. He has won so many championship rings, he struggles to turn doorknobs. He also has a timeshare in Pigeon Forge. He's a licensed notary public and a self-proclaimed legendary football coach. So thank you, Coach. On behalf of the Grateful Bulldog Nation, thank you for your support of our best boy, Dak. All right, if you hadn't done so, go to WhenTheBottomFalls.com and you can order the newest book, When the Bottom Falls. Still getting great reviews from that. And had lunch today with Jeff. We talked a little about the book. And certainly appreciate your well wishes. So many people have reached out, and so the book has touched them and provided maybe some understanding, not just about me, but about addiction and about recovery. And really about being an underdog in life and fighting your way to the top. That's an important aspect of all this. It's a story of redemption. And in addition to When the Bottom Falls, you can also get Flim Flam, Stark Villains, Alpha Dogs, and Dogpile. And Villains and Alpha Dogs will soon be out of print. We had kind of hit critical levels, and we were able to get some more inventory, but they're going to go away for a couple of years. And so if you need to get those, you need to act now. I would encourage you to do so. And then next month, in the month of May, I'm not sure the dates yet, we're going to open up pre-orders for the book, The Dude, the biography of Dudy Noble. I'm about halfway through the writing process, and of course the first 9 chapters are already in editing. I will work on chapter 10 this weekend, kind of finish that up, and trying to knock out a couple chapters a week here so we can get this bad boy finished up here by the end of May. And then we'll have the month of June to kind of put a book to print. And then it takes about 6 weeks. And so we'll have it out for you in August. But there's also going to be a limited edition, numbered limited edition, probably going to be about 150 copies of that book that I've teased that a little bit. We'll give you more details once that gets finalized. They've told me not to give too many details because the design may change. And so once we get that, there are going to be a lot of people, I think, that will want that version of the book. And so those will sell out the first day. So you need to be mindful of that now. When we open up for pre-orders, if you want that limited edition copy of The Dude, you're going to have to order day one. Now I will give you guys advance notice on the show, and it will push out the socials as soon as it goes live. But you need to understand those are going to go fast. And then if you come back later and say, Steve, I really wanted to get that, I'm not going to be able to help you. I don't control any of that. I don't control the money. I don't control the dates. I just write the books. And then I have a publisher, contrary to popular belief on social media, I have a publisher that handles all those things. And so it's important to understand when that link goes live, if you want that book, you need to be thinking about it now so you can prepare to buy it, because it's going to be very, very limited quantities, and they're going to be gone right away. So if the link pops up and you think, well, I'll order when I get off work, chances are you're going to miss out. I'm just telling you that because I have had at least 500 people that have either reached out to me personally or either on Twitter or Facebook or something of that nature and said, hey, can you save me one of those copies? No, I cannot. I have no control over that. But I will give you some lead time when we get here. And certainly appreciate all of you that have read books over the years. I have no plans to slow down, just so you know. I thought about taking a year off next year. I don't believe that I will. So just so you know. So also, too, if you haven't joined us over at Gene's page, please come do that. We work really hard and provide unprecedented coverage of Mississippi State athletics. And we don't cry about things and we get beat on them. We just kind of go back and do our job. We just go write our story. We try to have some integrity in what we do. And, we love Mississippi State. We ride the wave just like you do. And so I encourage you to come be a part of that. The biggest and longest running website in the history of this university is genespage.com, the Mississippi State affiliate for 247 Sports, a subsidiary of CBS Interactive. Hey, thanks so much. You guys have a great weekend. Hopefully we'll get back on Monday. We're talking about a big series win over Ole Miss. For many of you, by the time you listen to the show, it'll almost be first pitch. So until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.